Captain Ibrahim Traoré has delivered a decisive blow to foreign interests with a historic land reform policy that is reshaping the economic and political landscape of the country. Under his leadership, the Burkinabe government has taken full ownership of all land, making it legally impossible for foreigners to hold title deeds. This bold move has sent shockwaves across Africa, causing panic among Western investors and politicians who have long relied on Africa's weak land policies to secure massive agricultural and resource extraction deals. While critics have rushed to label this policy as dictatorial, the Burkinabe government has firmly defended the decision, arguing that it is a necessary and strategic measure to safeguard national sovereignty, prevent land exploitation, and ensure that the country's resources are used for the benefit of its people.
I repeat, if our ancestors left us a land that we have found, we must leave better lands for our children. The fight is not only military, on the ground, but the fight is much deeper.
I'm very interested when you talk about we and they. We're roughly the same age. I was 12 when Madiba was released from prison, and I was 14 when the election happened. I'm a medical doctor. I work sometimes 160-hour weeks. I work sometimes 18 hours a day, and I own property because of that reason. And it sounds to me that you're suggesting that I should do all that work and come to this point in my life and now just hand away my property. And that concerns me.
You know, you are an exceptional case. If you were to stand up and say, I went to school and I'm a medical doctor and the property I have is because I went to school and I bought it. But most of your people didn't buy any property, they inherited it. So it's an exceptional case. No, you can disagree, but the reality is that you are in possession of a land that was stolen from us. And we want it back without any apology. We want that land back, and we are going to work together. I can tell you now, whether you are in denial or not, the demand for the land is growing and people are becoming impatient. And we don't want Zimbabwe here. We don't want Zimbabwe in this country. It has to be done legally, procedurally, in a manner that is not going to put the country and the economy in a disaster. We have to talk about it. We have to say, how do we, in a proper manner, make sure that everyone benefit from this land? So, you know, Mr. Santa will know, and those who were involved in the negotiations and pre-negotiations, that when it was inevitable for democracy to be ushered in, most of the corrupt state officials began to transfer land into the names of individuals. When we're building a road in Northwest, expanding a road in Northwest from Rustenburg to Mafikeng, the state had to now get into some farms so that, because they didn't have land reserves, so they had to go and take some portions of land as they go along. And then made a call. All those who were affected by our expropriation of land, please come forward so that we can compensate you. Very few people turned up. And the suspicion is that they do not have title deeds. People just declared, this is my land, just before 1994. So don't individualize a big problem. It's like when I say there is racism in this country and you come to me, but I'm not a racist. I'm not talking about you. If you are not racist, why are you worried? But generally there is a problem of racism. It's not about an individual. It's a group problem. It is an institutionalized problem. We have to deal with it. And if we don't talk about it, we will not recognize it as a problem. And because we have not recognized it as a problem, now we will not be in a position to solve that problem. You can't solve the problems which you have not identified. So let us not be sensitive. I mean, you are a graduate, you are a doctor, you own a piece of property. I've got a black doctor here with me, very young also, a graduate, and he owns property. We're not taking your property only. We're talking also his property, the flat he owns. A flat size, his flat is almost the size of your bathroom for sure. But even that, we're taking from him. So it's not about a black or white. All of us, we need to surrender our land to the state and give that state an opportunity to allocate it for proper use. You can shake your hand, I'm proposing a peaceful solution. You're refusing it, you will surrender it to the revolution.
"70,000 white South Africans are now willing to leave their homeland, seeking refuge in the United States under an executive order from U.S. President Donald Trump. The offer, which grants refugee status to Afrikaners, a white minority group descended from Dutch and French colonial settlers, has ignited a fierce global debate. Trump claims that the South African government, led by the black majority, is engaging in unjust racial discrimination against this community, particularly through policies like land reform and affirmative action.
Now, in the backdrop of diplomatic tensions between the U.S. and South Africa, Elon Musk has once again accused the South African government of racial discrimination. Musk accused the South African government of, quote, promoting white genocide.
As U.S.-South Africa ties hit to rock bottom over land reforms, U.S. President Donald Trump has an offer for white South Africans. Trump wants to give them refugee status in the U.S., as he believes that they are the victims of unjust laws back home. While the leading groups representing white South Africans have refused the offer, the idea has definitely turned heads. Nearly 70,000 South Africans have shown interest in Trump's plan.
But the question remains, are these 70,000 people being oppressed? Or are they simply no longer being treated as the privileged masters of the land, a legacy of the apartheid system? Is the real issue the loss of power rather than the injustice of their treatment? Let's find out. In February 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump made headlines around the world with a bold and controversial executive order aimed at South Africa. The order halted U.S. financial aid to the country, accusing its black-led government of discriminating against the white Afrikaner minority. This move was more than just a policy decision. It was a geopolitical gesture that set the stage for a global debate on racial dynamics, colonial histories, and the role of Western powers in shaping the future of post-apartheid South Africa. Trump's executive order offered refugee status to Afrikaners, descendants of Dutch and French colonial settlers, claiming they were victims of unjust racial discrimination under the current government. This declaration was not without its critics. Many saw it as an attempt to intervene in South Africa's internal affairs, particularly at a time when the country was grappling with policies aimed at redressing apartheid-era inequalities. Trump's rhetoric, shaped by his previous statements on racial and immigration issues, painted a picture of a South Africa in crisis, where white Afrikaners were increasingly under threat from the very government that had been elected to lead a post-apartheid nation. The executive order prioritized Afrikaners, offering them a pathway to resettlement in the U.S., and framing them as victims in need of protection. However, the timing of Trump's move was not incidental. South Africa had long been the subject of international scrutiny, especially regarding its land reform policies, which sought to address the deep racial disparities in land ownership. These policies were viewed by many as a direct attack on the economic status of white landowners, including Afrikaners, who still held the majority of the country's fertile land. In the years leading up to Trump's executive order, tensions between the South African government and Western nations had been building over these issues. Trump's decision to use the Afrikaner issue as a platform for action was, in part, a response to his broader agenda of challenging global narratives about racial and immigration policy. But was the plight of Afrikaners truly as dire as Trump claimed? Or were these accusations of systemic oppression based on a narrative that ignored the complexities of post-apartheid South Africa? Trump's framing of the issue aligned with a larger right-wing narrative, which painted South Africa's land reform and affirmative action policies as discriminatory against white South Africans. He criticized the policies as anti-white measures, using the threat of violence against Afrikaner farmers as a central point in his argument. However, the South African government consistently rejected these claims, labeling them as misinformed and politically motivated. President Cyril Ramaphosa and other government officials swiftly condemned the executive order, calling it a direct attack on South Africa's sovereignty. Ramaphosa insisted that the country's policies were not only lawful, but were part of a broader strategy to heal the divisions left by apartheid. His administration had long defended the necessity of land reform, aiming to redress the imbalances created by apartheid-era land ownership laws, which saw 73% of the land controlled by the white minority. Ramaphosa argued that South Africa's land reform program was an effort to address these historic inequities, not an attack on any specific group. In the wake of Trump's order, a complex narrative began to emerge, one where claims of persecution were intertwined with questions about racial dynamics in post-apartheid South Africa. Some Afrikaners began to see the U.S. offer as a lifeline, while others rejected it, choosing to remain in South Africa and fight for their future within the country. For them, the offer was an insult, a reflection of a world that misunderstood the struggles of those living within South Africa's changing landscape. Many of these Afrikaners felt that they were being unfairly painted as the villains in a story that they believed they had no part in writing. The debate over whether or not Afrikaners were truly facing systemic persecution quickly became entangled with larger issues of race, power, and historical injustice. To some, the offer of resettlement in the U.S. symbolized a global tendency to focus on the struggles of white South Africans while overlooking the decades of systemic discrimination faced by black South Africans. For the South African government, the international attention on the plight of Afrikaners felt like a diversion from the hard work it had done to build a more equitable society.
Now, Donald Trump, the US president, is issuing out a letter that white South Africans should exit South Africa and they are going to be given an opportunity to live in the United States of America. Yeah. The reason is South African government is is doing what we call land reform and affirmative action. But according to Donald Trump and some of white South Africans, because as we're talking right now, over 70,000 South Africans are willing to leave South Africa to go to the United States of America to live there. But other Afrikaners, South Africans, white South Africans, some of them, they said that Donald Trump asking them to get out of South Africa to go and stay in the United States of America is like a mockery to them, and they're not going to do that. Therefore, they've started and they begin demonstrating, fighting for their rights of living and staying in South Africa. Okay, and now, according to the South African government, what they are doing is land reforms and affirmative action. But according to Donald Trump and other white South Africans, they think and they feel like they are being oppressed and discriminated in South Africa, a land that they claim belongs to them. My question is, I don't have a problem on affirmative action and land reforms. I don't have a problem on Donald Trump thinking that white South Africans who are in South Africa are being oppressed and they're being discriminated. I don't have a problem on other white South Africans denying the chance to leave South Africa. I don't have a problem on South Africans, over 70,000, deciding to leave South Africa. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is South Africa has a government, and this government of South Africa is under Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. South Africa is an African country that is located in the continent of Africa. In many years and in history, and even today, if we do research, we have never found and we can never find a white country that is in Africa. That is why this continent is called an African continent, and we have an American continent. We have American continents. We have Asian continents. Okay? We have Europe continents. We have never had a white country that is in Africa. which means the white South Africans who are in Africa are not the original, like they are not supposed to be in South Africa as their own land, which means the white South Africans who are in South Africa are not, like South Africa is not their homeland. It's not their original land, okay? Which means South Africa is a land that belongs to Africans, not to whites. And therefore, South Africans who are in Africa, or Africans who are in Africa, or the government of Africa, which is in Africa, is supposed to do things, it is supposed to make decisions the way it wants to make decisions, because that government belongs to Africans, and that country belongs to Africans. I will prove you with this. In the United States of America, we have black Americans in the United States of America who are being oppressed day and night. They are being segregated. They are being resisted. Like they are being discriminated day and night. It is something that is happening, and it's something that has become normal. But black Americans or African Americans who are in the United States of America, they've never gotten an opportunity of defending themselves. Because anytime they try to defend themselves, they are being called all sorts of names. They are being treated in many ways, in many bad ways. They like every time they've been subjected, they've gone through tough times in the United States of America. And that is why right now, African Americans in the United States of America, they want to be segregated. They want segregation so badly, because its segregation has been something that has been part of them for all these years. And therefore, right now, even if you begin now, maybe discriminate, like, okay, if you begin standing against segregation as a white person, they think like you're mocking them. Because all the years you've subjected them through segregation, and now segregation has become something that they're used to it. Are we together? So, I don't see the reason as to why white South Africans in South Africa should be treated should be treated in a good way. Because, you see, a spear to a pig is sweet, but to a human being, it's painful. The same thing that is happening in the United States of America is the same thing that is happening today in South Africa. And it's not even worse. In South Africa, there is no segregation. White people are not segregated. In South Africa, white people are not resisted. There's a place in South Africa where only white South Africans stay, and they don't even want any other person to go there. The same thing that is happening in the United States of America. Okay? And therefore, whatever the South African government is doing is just an act of land reformation and affirmative action. Okay? You know, in the United States of America, I don't even think if black people are owning lands. Tell me in the comment section. I don't know if black people own lands in the US. Are they allowed to own lands in the US? I don't know. Tell me on the comment section. But in South Africa, white South Africans are owning big portion of lands. They are owning big portions of lands, and at the end of the day, we have South Africans in South Africa who are landless. Okay? But we have white South Africans who are foreigners in South Africa who own big portions of land. What we want is African Americans who are in America to come back to Africa, which is their homeland. And white South Africans who are in South Africa claiming that South Africa is their homeland to go back to the US, to go back to America, which is their homelands. Are we together? And we don't have a problem. We Africans, we don't have a problem with the white South Africans getting out of South Africa and go back to their homelands, which is America. But white Americans have a problem with African Americans getting out of the United States of America to come back to Africa. You know why? Because African Americans in the US, they are really contributing a lot to the economy of the US. Their great minds is the minds that are being used to build the United States of America. And it is the great minds that have been used to build the United States of America all the years. And therefore they feel like if they can be able to leave these people, to go back to their homelands, to come back to Africa, they might not be able to do things smoothly. Because it is not that white people are greater or they have extra mind compared to black people. In fact, we have many black people who are very, 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 like they are very clever, and the level of intelligence is very high compared to white people. Okay? And therefore, white Americans leaving African Americans coming back to Africa, it has become a problem. That is why they deny them visas and all that and many other things. I've heard in the comment section, I've come across the comments that someone is saying, I am an African. I would love to come back to Africa. I am an African American. I would love to come back to Africa, my motherland. But how can I come to Africa? It is very difficult. I cannot manage to come to Africa. You see? But you see, now, white South Africans in South Africa, they don't want to go back to America. Why? Because they know that Africa is a land of opportunity. And if there is a place in the world you can live better, you can live well, is in Africa. If there is a place in the world where if you live, you're okay, it is in Africa. Because Africa has got everything. You can find everything, you can get everything you want in Africa. They know if they go back to the US, they might not be able to get the things they're getting from Africa. That is why they don't want to get out of Africa. Okay? So, let me tell you this. I want African governments not to be interfered with. If the South African government has come with a rule of land reforms and affirmative actions, it should be left to continue doing what it is doing. Because South Africa is not a state in the US. South Africa is an African country. It's a state in Africa. Okay? It's an African country with African leaders, with African rules, with African regulations, okay, with African conditions. So United States of America should never come in and say that, you know, you're supposed to work this way, to do this way, or to do that way. I think the way US is guiding and governing itself, and nobody should interfere with the matters of the US as a government. Because if anybody does that, it is wrong. Because this is US. Let them do whatever they want to do, however they want to do. And again, Africa should be Africa. You should let Africa do whatever the Africans want to do in their own way, and nobody should interfere. Because if anybody interferes, that is wrong. Okay? We have to live that way. African governments like Ibrahim Traore. Traore took France away because Traore wanted to govern himself in his own way. And that is what Ibrahim Traore is doing today. Ibrahim Traore, he is governing himself in his own way possible, in the ways that he knows possible. Okay? He never wanted France to come in and help him or give him conditions or rules on how to govern Burkina Faso. That is why Ibrahim Traore took power in Burkina Faso. Okay? And he doesn't listen to outside powers, to foreign powers. He only listens to himself because he knows what is better to the people of Africa. Foreign power does not know what is better for the people of Africa. They only know what is better for them. Okay? So African governments should be left to do their own things by the foreign countries, especially the Western countries and the Western power. The white man's supremacy should leave Africans to make decisions for themselves. Okay? And I don't think if a white man has maybe a right to live in Africa unless he has a citizenship, unless he has followed the rules and the ways of living in Africa. White people came to Africa during colonization. Some of them never left, okay? But they came to Africa illegally. They just came illegally, and they're living in South Africa illegally, okay? White African Americans in the US, they are not there illegally because they were taken into slavery. They were forced to go there. But in Africa, nobody forced white people to come to Africa. They came in Africa willingly, and they were coming to oppress us. Okay? And a time has come when oppression cannot continue anymore. So they have to leave, because Africans are clever today, and Africans have waken up. So I think these land reforms and affirmative action should continue, so that Africans who are in South Africa should get lands also, should also find an opportunity to live peacefully in their countries. Okay? Foreigners should not be living in big portions of lands while people from the same land are suffering. No. It can never happen. So the government of South Africa under Cyril Ramaphosa and Julius Malema, kudos. You guys are doing the best thing. You're doing better. Continue doing what you're doing. Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, Tiani and Goita in Mali and Niger respectively. Continue doing what you are doing. You're great people. I salute you guys so much for everything you're doing because, you know, we are supposed to stand by our own selves and nobody should rule us. Nobody should rule over us because we are Africans, we are black people, and Africa belongs to Africans, okay? I tell you every day, Africa is home, and anything that concerns Africa concerns me and you as black people and as Africans. Do let me know what you think on the comments, on the comment section over this issue. I'll do my best to make sure I read all the comments and reply where possible. If it's your first time to be here, that subscription bell, press it. That subscription box, press it. The notification bell, press it. Share this video to every other people, every other black people and all the Africans to make sure that everybody is standing and fighting for the revolution of Africa. I am the African Streamline. Thank you so much for the returning viewers. I salute you so much and I love you people so much. My black brothers from Caribbean, from diaspora and from Africa in particular, you are great people. I love you so much. I salute you. Adios, muchachos. Peace be with you.